Welcome to Conscious I, living in authentic connection and harmony with self, others, and the world. Featuring Ravi and Savitri. Good morning. It's so great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's a beautiful morning. Had my coffee,
Oh,
took my
I'm
cat out for
sorry.
her walk. Yeah,
Mhm.
our cups match today.
Cheers.
Yeah, so we're back. This is our second episode. I'm excited to get into it. Last week
Yes.
was great. We had some people commenting and really appreciate the folks who supported us on our launch.
I do too. I was so grateful. Of course, we're always happy when people share what their experience was, but what things came back to me like, loved it. Thanks for doing this. Look forward to the next one. Um, and that was the major tone. And thank you to all of those people who sent those, and you know who you are. And
Thanks
we
to our friends
appreciate
of the
it.
pod. These are the people that are going to be grandfathered in as we grow
Right.
into our programs.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
the OGs, the OGs. Yeah, so that was great. And looking forward to our conversation this week. We're moving on with these talks that we've been on Dharma,
Mhm.
which we touched on a little bit last week, but I think this week we're going to dive a little deeper into that.
Yes. Oh, and it's been a week. We're having Dharma at top of mind throughout the week because I'm thinking about ways to um, illustrate, okay, this is dharmic, this is not, it's adharmic. And I realized that I was getting a little deep into the weeds, like down into the roots with that. And some of that might be that cosmic energy flowing toward us in this full moon and lunar eclipse that's going to show up on Sunday. Um, and it's so interesting to me, I mean, given our current social events and things that are going on in the United States, we are the only area of the globe that will not be able to see the eclipse.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Tell us a little more about that.
well, I'm not sure exactly how to pinpoint it, but this morning, as I was reviewing some of the things that we might chat about as we move through this morning, um, I also do a morning moon brief, which is a snapshot of the energies of the moon as he travels around the earth. And he comes into different regions of the sky called nakshatras. They're lunar mansions. So, from an astronomy scientific standpoint, they are lunar mansions or asterisms. From Vedic astrology standpoint, it's sidereal, so it's mapped to the actual location of where the moon is in that region. And I'm writing this morning, and I'm thinking about how the moon is coming into an area of the sky where we start thinking about endings and big transformations and renewals. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to mention the eclipse and what time it starts and where it can be seen. And when I started looking at the statistics about that so that I could just get that snapshot of info out, right? And right away, I made this connection to how our position in the world is shifting as a
Hmm.
country.
Hmm.
And I'm always looking for symbolism and things, but that one felt real and
It's
resonated.
pretty.
So I'm going to leave it at that and let everyone explore it in their own way and
Mhm.
maybe comment about it and let me know if it made sense, or you had any additional thoughts or emotions about it.
Well, that's what's the science and the art of astrology. That's why we said a little bit last time, Vedic, the sidereal is the scientific astrology
Hmm.
aligned with where the bodies are in out there now. Whereas the tropical is no longer aligned with what is really where we are, our placement and the heavenly bodies placements in the cosmos.
Hmm.
So hearing your take on it, your read on it, and I always like to pay attention to that because I don't hear that on other platforms. It's really hard to find sidereal folks out there.
Hmm.
And the information that you get from the tropical folks is it's a little not it's a little off. The energy is just slightly different.
Hmm.
So yeah, those moon briefs are great. And that's
Thank
really
you.
fascinating because I was not aware of that little tidbit fact that we're the only ones. It's time to, I was thinking as you mentioned, it's about shifts, it's about new beginnings, it's about endings. It's about, I feel like we're on a threshold, right, of
We are.
seasons
That's right.
from,
Hmm.
summer, summer is ending. We're moving into the harvest, getting ready to hibernate as we move across that threshold. There's a lot to determine what we really need to take with us and what we want to stock up in life on.
That, in
And
a nutshell, is exactly where the eclipse will occur, in that transformational energy. And just a quick note about the Western or tropical astrology. I like to think of it in the way that they are using it and finding their calculations for their charts. And it is really seasonal based on the perceived perception of where the sun is, either north hemisphere or south hemisphere. So they have a process and they have a method. The Vedic astrology has a process and a method as well. And as you mentioned, it's actually where things are in the sky. I mean, if you did the mathematics or you got any of those really fun apps that are available, that you can point your phone a certain place in the sky and see the constellations and the planets on your screen so you can learn where they are in the sky. And the apps give you the names of things, so it's a great tool and it's fun, and it is based on the mathematical position of each of
which
the constellations and the and
Yeah, and those larger planets, the further out you go, the more important that is to know, when they are, where they are, and how that lines up with your chart and your personal map. That helps you work with the energies rather than being unaware of them or being at the whim of them. Really being able to better focus and direct our own energy based on where we're most supported. I think I
yeah,
spent a lot of my life, fighting energy, wanting to push life in one direction when I could have just, ridden the wave and gone in another direction, and it would have been maybe not easier, but more easeful. I think that's
yeah,
something that's important, a concept that was an important concept to me in understanding my dharmic path is that it may not always be easy, but there's an easefulness to it, in that surrender to that path. And maybe we
yes,
maybe we talk a little bit more, like about what it is. I think it's called the path and the way in many different references. Um, it's, perhaps our duty. Um, so what is it? What is Dharma?
are you asking me that question? I love that. Okay, I'll go with that. You, there are lots of different ways to look at Dharma, and as many cultures as we have on this globe at this time, or on this planet, if you want to reference it that way, or on Mother Earth, everyone has their own perspective. But when we start really peeling away the layers of what Dharma is, it comes down to being human. And that's pretty basic, okay? We are human being. We are being human. So if we take the name of what we are, our form, a human being, we can start building from there. And what do humans do when we're here on the planet? What are our responsibilities? And of course, for another topic, our karma topic, which will be coming up in the future, we start looking at what have we brought forward into this life that maybe we need to resolve. We have unfinished business. We have lessons to learn. We have soul to evolve. There are lots of things that occur there. And just using the astrological birth chart, it's like the blueprint or the map for this lifetime. And that doesn't mean there's predestination, which is always a question I get. It means that this is where the energies were aligned at the time of your birth. The energies are shining on you as you come onto the planet. And it gives us, just like a blueprint when you start a building or a construction project, you have an intention of what it's going to be. It's been worked out. The mathematics are done, all of the shapes and the forms and the landscaping and the walls, the roof, all of that is determined. And then as you get into it, suddenly you realize, oh, that didn't go well. Maybe we need to make a change here. So then you go back to the drawing board and you look at what that change will be and you make a decision about it and all of the influences and impacts that might roll out from that change. And that's basically what our chart does. It gives us the original blueprint. And then as we live our lives, we have free will. When something comes up, we have choices. We can say, okay, I'm going to address this issue now. I'm going to take care of this unfinished business. I'm going to meet this demand and carry on my duty. So when you look at it from a Hindu philosophy, it really is about duty, the duty of being a human being in the environment we're in. So that'll shift a little bit depending on what your socio-political structure is and maybe some of the stories that might show up for you that could be restraints, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, and there are other ways to look at it too. You know, from a Buddhist philosophy, they talk about it as teaching, the teachings of Buddha. And the teachings of Buddha bring us into a way, like you were mentioning, a path, a way of being. So hopefully, did I get there with that for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just think, there are many different ways to think about it, and, perspectives and lenses to look through. And I think of, Dharma being your way of being in the world,
Mhm.
your way of expressing yourself and finding your way back to spirit, right? Back to soul, back to source.
Mhm.
And there is an evolution of the ego. Your ego needs to evolve from the little I to the big I am, and seeing who and what we are. That question of who am I? Why am I here? I think, that's of course a universal uh, question that everyone experiences at some time or another, wondering what am I doing here? And that path, that feeling of, yeah, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be, here, I'm doing what I'm here for, is that living in alignment, that Maitri Ma Nolan in Dharma for Awakening and Social Change mentions, the difference between Sava Dharma, your own individual path, and Bhagavad Dharma, the path that we're all on together, walking each other home. And there's a responsibility to do that with compassion and in a way that is beneficial to you and to all around you, including the earth,
Mm-hmm.
the 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 planet on which we live. It's living in that um, natural state of flow, floating on the river of life, not necessarily always paddling against the current
Mm-hmm.
like we are wont to do when we have a vision or a focus of going somewhere, when maybe if we just shifted a little bit, we'd find, the answer, the door is over here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and there are so many different layers to look at it. We have Dharma to ourselves. First, we have to know who we are, at least to a certain point, so that we can begin to be true and authentic and not living someone else's Dharma. Because it's real easy to look at what someone who is successful or maybe has a certain body form that we find attractive, we would like to be more like that. We have all these external desires that show up, and the grass is always greener, right? And so we're looking for that green grass. We're seeking, seeking, seeking when it all starts inside. So we have our own personal dharma, and then we have our dharma to our immediate individuals that are around us, our family, our close friends, our community. And then we have the collective dharma as well, where all of the individual dharmas, all of the community dharmas, all come together in this very large energetic. And we are exposed and responsible for all of those layers. So thinking about, is it just good for me, cuts you out of that. Is it good for the community? Is it good for the collective?
they're good
However,
for the
once you
planet.
grow, yeah,
Yeah.
once you grow and emerge out and you're thinking on a very large scale, that takes care of what's going on inside from your individual dharma and the community and outward. Then we can expand to the universe and the cosmos and go beyond there, because all of the energies, each one of us, provides an energetic that is mirrored back to us in karma, but also goes out beyond where we can even imagine as humans.
Right. Well, and as you were talking about how we have those layers of dharma, I was thinking how we have those layers of karma as well,
That's
our
right.
own individual layers and our more immediate circle layers. And then as a collective, we have layers, which takes us back to that eclipse that's happening that gives
Mm-hmm.
us an opportunity not only to ask ourselves how we want to evolve in this next chapter, but as a collective, how we want to evolve. And I believe maybe last week we mentioned, nuclear revolution, that true revolution to evolve as a collective comes from the nuclear, within that nuclear change within, that when we change our inner being and are living in alignment with our dharmic purpose, which aligns us more in harmony with the world around us and the collective around us. It heals the planet. But it sounds cliche, right? It's that cliche that
Mm-hmm.
everybody is unless you're in that state, it can sound like lip service. So I always say there's a cognitive knowing. There's a, yeah, I know that. And there's an embodiment of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And where it's that, how do we get from that cognitive knowing to the embodiment of knowing? For me, that's been practice.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you practice for years and you're thinking, why am I not? Why am I
Where is
not?
it? Right. Hmm.
And then finally, all of a sudden, you're not even thinking about it, you're experiencing it, and now it's an embodiment.
Hmm.
You know, the stories that we tell ourselves, the narratives. It's interesting. I went to Bali, right, last October
Hmm.
to rededicate my practice, get I really wanted to be, it was not just a new chapter for me, it was like an entirely new book, a new tome, if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
And I'm still amazed. I'm still having revelations from that experience. And one of them came recently. And one of the a lot of wounds came up at that time. A lot of like
Hmm.
karmic wounds, childhood wounds. Mama Bali has a tendency to bring poison out and then provide a remedy, you know,
Hmm.
the panacea. So it's a really intense experience, and those are still coming up for me. And most recently, I was thinking, you know, these stories that I told myself about who I was because of my past experiences, you know, the church I grew up in, the town I grew up in, the communities I experienced, you know, those formative years, how I feel that falling away in a way I never had before. And it didn't happen overnight, but it shifted from a conscious, that's my story, but how do I drop it, to an embodiment of, oh, where did it go? You know, it just,
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
yeah, right. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
we
it
do the
sounds
work
like you were gifted a bit of detachment along the way.
a little bit. Yeah, right. That's one of the on the mat, right? And when in practice, one of the questions that comes up is how quickly can you drop it? How quickly can you drop the day? How quickly can you drop that thought? How quickly can you drop that emotion and just be here now, present in the practice on the mat? And you do that and you do that and you think, where, you know, when is this going to manifest in my life? Why isn't it happening? And then all of a sudden one day you realize there it is. And that's why the practice is important.
Right. It's not a silver bullet, which a lot of people like to think it is. And it's about tapas, which is discipline. And that anytime we have discipline, I'm going to take it out of the world of yoga because it works there amazingly well. You just talked about that. It also works that way when you want to be an athlete, when you're in a sport, when you're a dancer, when you're a writer, when you're a musician, when you choose anything that requires a sense of development and intensity and depth. We can do lots of things on a superficial level. The things that we choose to go deep with take time, take repetition. You know, I can think learning the piano, going back to a childhood experience, and thinking, how many times am I going to have to play these two bars where I had to transition into something a little bit tricky, right? With where the hand position was on the keyboard. And it took a lot of time, a lot of focus, and a lot of releasing. And so, just like being in a sport, competitive or not, whether it's leisure or you're in a sport that has that pressure of competition attached to it, or something that you do for yourself, it's what you were describing with the yoga practice. We come to it on a regular basis, consistent, and on the times when we feel like not showing up, those are the moments we probably need it the most. And that's when you'll find that some of that magic starts to happen. You're like, okay, I really didn't want to do this today. I don't have time for this. All right, I'm going to do it. And then you give yourself over to it in a different way. And suddenly, those things that intellectually and you've been seeking um, because you want your body to do certain things, all just falls into place. It's one of those days where it's the flow. And we hear about that from runners a lot. You know, I'm in the zone, I'm just running. And that's our dharma when we're aligned. We're always on a dharmic path. It doesn't matter whether we're aligned or not. It's sometimes it's easier when we're aligned, like easeful, like you mentioned. And then
Yes,
sometimes
yeah,
it's full of bumps and challenges, which gives us some information back about maybe what we're doing, where we're headed, and we make decisions about that. So it's the whole thing. So when people talk about being on and off the path, they're not really saying that they're off the path. They're just not aligned with the flow of the energy that we brought to the planet.
right.
Yeah.
And I think you can, I always kind of in my mind think of it as like a map where, there's so many roads to the same
Yeah.
place. You can choose the path that's beautiful and is on the serene river and float down and watch the trees go by and it's great. Or you can choose that one with the construction and the jackhammer going off with, you're sitting there for hours. We sit stuck in our own, in our own way sometimes. So that's the way I kind of see it in my mind
Mhm,
a lot of
mhm,
times is that we're all going to the same destination, but you can take many different roads in many different ways, and there's many different ways to travel there. And I've always said, as many minds, as many ways. There's no one path back to yourself or
mhm,
to source. And there's it's incredibly important for me when like this is part of my personal philosophy, and I feel like my dharmic path is to create spaces where people belong and feel free to share who they are and express
mhm,
themselves who they are, because nature and the cosmos and the earth, they love variety.
mhm,
It thrives, we thrive on diversity. You can't exist on, eating one kind of thing. You can't you can't be healthy from growing one type of food in a garden. It takes diversity and it takes nurturing each different kind of plant and flower in the way that it needs to be nurtured, not sticking it in one environment and expecting it to grow,
mhm.
but providing the environment that nurtures that society. Something that we can work on as a collective is creating those spaces where we're nurtured and, move away from that. Let's box everybody up into this package, and this is how we have to look and behave and exist. Allow ourselves, we have to give that to ourselves first, allow ourselves the grace to be who we are and the compassion to be and express who we are, and create more space for that in the collective.
Yeah. And the uh, the thing that comes to mind from that is a family life. You know, you think about a family, and not everybody has siblings, but in a family where there are siblings, or where you have a close knit community where people that aren't actually of your genetic line become siblings because you are brothers and sisters in the same environment. Each of those individuals, each of us in those environments, grow up pretty much in a similar external environment. But when we look at what happens in people's lives and how their dharmic paths start to really bring them into a sense of being, it's amazing to think that that diversity that you're talking about happens as well in that way. It's like getting a packet of seeds and you throw it out or you plant them, and each of the flowers come up and they're similar, like they all might be zinnias or marigolds, But when you look at them closely, they all have their own unique qualities. The
Mhm.
leaves are a
Mhm.
little different. The petals are a little different. The colors may be slightly shaded a bit differently. And we see that in the human beings as well
Mhm.
as we
Yeah.
become. Hmm.
Yes, and the path, how the path unfolds.
Yes,
Right, right. That's finding our way, finding our way.
finding our way. And that's what we're doing. And I love that about our dialogue sessions. I think every episode could be finding our way
Mhm.
because that is a theme that you and I had talked about, in that we have, when we look back at our lives, we have so many things that are similar and so many ways that we did things differently. And now here we are. And hopefully, over the time that we're together and we continue to have these podcasts, we'll be able to share some of those moments. And I would love to hear from uh, all of you listening or viewing this video. What were the big turning points in your life? Where did you feel like you had a dharmic choice? And how did that go?
Yeah.
Now that you look back to it. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's the stories we tell
That's right.
that bring us, the how we find our way, and it's the stories that we're able to let go of as well that help us continue on our path together. We're always evolving personally and as a collective. There's a lot that can be left behind at this point as
Mhm.
we come upon a new season, as we come upon the threshold of a new season here on our planet and a new energetic season as well. So I think we have the topic of karma coming up, which
We
will
do.
be interesting to see how that plays out as we move forward through these shifts. And of course, anything else you as listeners want to hear, let us know. Our email is conscious eyes, EYES 108 at gmail.com. So always feel free to share a topic that would be of interest to you. And yeah, let's keep this ball rolling,
And be
keep the
sure
Dharma
to
on the
like
track.
and share and ring the bell. And that way you'll get notified when the next episode comes out. We have some plans to uh, become associated with different platforms, so we'll keep you posted on that as well as those options become available. And I'd like to invite you to do what a couple people who provided feedback to me did with the first episode, and that is, I'm going to take it out into my garden and listen while I garden. I'm going to take this to the kitchen and listen while I'm making dinner. And I thought that was amazing because that's what yoga's about as well. We're bringing this into our lives, finding that open space where we can have some peace, tranquility, some calm, and the mind just goes, thank you.
Yep. So rate, review, subscribe, like, comment, share. And those of you who are OGs, you're getting grandfathered in. Now is the time. So awesome. And Savitri, it was so great to talk with you again today. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
See you the next time, Ravi.
Satnam.
Namaste.